Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world.
Today is going to be a little different, I think, but ultimately maybe more revealing than our usual technical topics. We are going to look at a manual for human operating systems that has been disguised basically for 80 years as a children's book.
Yeah, we were talking about The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and before you reach for the stop button, thinking we're about to do some nostalgic literary review of a bedtime story, just stop. That is really not what this deep dive is about.
No, not at all. This is a systems level analysis. We are treating this text as a diagnostic tool for the adult operating system. We want to define the core conflict the book presents, which is the clash between the adult institutional perception system, which privileges quantification, hierarchy, and utility and relational value, which privileges connection, uniqueness, and the invisible.
Right, and it is actually kind of terrifying when you read it through this lens. It is not cute. It is a really sharp critique of how we, as modern adults, evaluate worth. I want you, listening right now, to just think about how you measure your own life. Is it your salary? Is it the square footage of your house, your job title?
Or the number of followers you have. And we are going to uncover how the characters the prince meets on his journey, the king, the businessman, the geographer, they aren't just caricatures. They are archetypes of specific institutional failures.
Yeah.
We are going to map out everything from the accumulation of useless data to the burnout of bureaucratic compliance.
So let us unpack this. I mean, we have to start where the book starts, right?
Yeah.
With a drawing.
Phase 1, design, the architecture of adult perception.
Right. So the pilot, who is our narrator, tells us about his first drawing, drawing number 1. He is 6 years old, and he draws a boa constrictor digesting an elephant. And to him, it is a terrifying image of a jungle predator. It is a moment of raw, biological reality.
But he shows it to the adults, the stakeholders of his world, if you will.
Yeah.
And he asks them, does this frighten you?
And they just say, why should anyone be frightened by a hat?
Yeah, and this is the first real failure of the system, and it is fundamentally a failure of topology. The adults see the exterior hull, the shape's a lump, it looks like a hat. They perceive only the surface-level geometry.
Because they lack the codec to process the interior. They cannot see the elephant inside the snake.
Exactly. They cannot see the process. They only see the static object.
Which implies that the adult perception system is entirely surface-oriented. It scans for recognizable shapes, hat, and then it just stops processing. It does not query deeper. So the kid, who is obviously frustrated, makes drawing number 2. He draws the cross-section. He literally draws the elephant inside the snake so the adult can see it. He says, grown-ups always need to have things explained.
And here is the pivot point. The adult reaction is not, oh, wow, I see it now, my perception was limited. The reaction is a strict directive. They advise him to lay aside the drawings, inside or outside, and devote himself to geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar.
That is such a brutal moment. It is the exact moment the system onboards the child. It is an intervention.
Exactly. It is a complete override. The adult system essentially says, your mode of perception, which looks for hidden meaning and narrative and biological reality, is inefficient. It is not productive. Here are the tools of the institution: geography, history, arithmetic.
Because those are tools of measurement, location, and calculation. They are entirely utilitarian. They help you navigate the economy, but they do nothing for the soul.
Right, and the pilot says, that is why at the age of 6, I gave up what might have been a magnificent career as a painter. He learned to pilot airplanes instead. He learned geography. He says, at a glance, I can distinguish China from Arizona.
Which is useful. I mean, the text admits it is useful. We're not saying geography is bad.
No, of course not. But the cost was his perception. He says he lived his life among grown-ups, and when he met one who seemed clear-sighted, someone who perhaps retained a bit of that childhood operating system, he would test them with drawing number 1.
The hat test.
The hat test. And every single time, without fail, the adult said, that is a hat.
And the pilot's response to that is so sad, but also so indicative of how we socially adapt to these systems. He says, then I would never talk to that person about boa constrictors or primeval forests or stars. I would bring myself down to his level. I would talk to him about bridge and golf and politics and neckties.
And the grown-up was greatly pleased to have met such a sensible man.
A sensible man.
Because sensible in this system just means surface level. It means operating within the agreed-upon parameters of bridge and neckties. It is a closed loop of safe, observable data.
It is small talk, basically.
Functionally, it is safe data exchange. We aren't exchanging vulnerability. We are exchanging standard tokens.
This brings us to the Turkish astronomer incident, which I think is just the perfect example of how this system processes or rejects data based completely on packaging. Yeah. It is almost a direct critique of academic publishing or modern corporate presentation culture.
This is a really critical case study in defining value through quantification and status. So the asteroid B612, where the prince comes from, was discovered by a Turkish astronomer. He presents his data to the International Astronomical Congress. He has the math, he has the observation, he has everything.
But he is wearing traditional Turkish clothes, robes, a fez maybe. He looks foreign to the Western European body of scientists.
And because of that costume variable, nobody believes him. The data is rejected wholesale. The truth of the asteroid's existence is completely secondary to the visual coding of the presenter. The system cannot ingest truth if it is not formatted correctly.
Then, years later, a dictator orders everyone to wear European suits under pain of death. The astronomer comes back, same data, same telescope, same asteroid, but now he is wearing a tuxedo.
And this time, everybody accepts his report.
It is ridiculous, but it is so real. I mean, we see this everywhere today.
It is purely systemic. The adult institutional perception system values status signaling over raw truth. The suit is a verified credential. The robes are unverified. The content of the presentation did not change at all. The packaging did.
This is how adults determine credibility.
Right. We look at the font, the suits, the title, the university degree, and then we decide if the fact is true.
And the pilot connects this directly to how a would make friends, which always stings a little to read. He says, when you tell them you have made a new friend, they never ask you any questions about essential matters.
This is the friend audit. It is how we quantify social capital.
They never ask, what does his voice sound like? What games does he love best? Does he collect butterflies?
Because those are qualitative data points. They are relational, they describe the unique texture of a human being. They are high-fidelity data, but they are not sortable data.
Right, they aren't easily ranked. Instead, they ask, how old is he? How many brothers? How much does he weigh? How much money does his father make?
The data fetish. The system is designed to fundamentally believe that a human being is a sum of metrics. If you have the numbers, you quote-unquote know the person. If you know the income and the weight, you have captured the reality.
Which is an ontological failure. It is mistaking the map for the territory entirely.
It reminds me of the housing market example he gives, which I think hits home really hard for modern readers because we're so obsessed with real estate values.
The rosy brick versus $20,000 comparison.
Yes, he says if you tell a grown-up, I saw a beautiful house made of rosy brick with geraniums in the windows and doves on the roof, they cannot process it. They just have a blank look on their face. They cannot estimate the value.
The aesthetic description, the geraniums, the doves, transmits zero value in the adult operating system. It is just noise.
Yeah.
It is unstructured data that they cannot parse.
But if you say, I saw a house that cost $20,000 or, in today's money, maybe $2 million,
then they exclaim, oh, what a pretty house that is.
The price tag is the only linguistic token they accept as proof of existence. It is the translation layer. The price is the standardized unit of worth. Geraniums are subjective. Doves are messy. Dollars are absolute.
The system seeks the absolute, even if it completely hollows out the meaning of the object. We replace the experience of the house with the market value of the house.
So we have established the design. Adults are blind to the inside of the boa constrictor, and they only trust numbers and costumes. Now let us move to phase 2, incentives. Why do they do this? What are they chasing?
The prince travels to these different asteroids, and each one is inhabited by a solitary man who seems to be trapped in his own specific incentive structure.
The first one he meets is the king, asteroid 325.
This guy is sitting on a throne wearing a huge ermine robe that covers basically the whole planet, and he claims to rule absolutely everything.
The king represents the incentive of authority. But look closely at the nature of his power. He claims the stars obey him. He claims universal jurisdiction over everything.
But when the prince, who is very practical, asks him to make the sun set, the king says he has to wait until the conditions are right. He consults a calendar. He says he will order the sun to set at, like, 7:40 p.m.
Which is exactly when the sun was going to set anyway. This is bureaucratic rationalization. The king literally says, accepted authority rests first of all on reason. If he orders the sun to set at noon, the sun will disobey, and the illusion of power shatters completely.
So he aligned his authority with inevitable natural occurrences to maintain the appearance of control.
Exactly. It is like a middle manager taking credit for the team's work that was going to happen regardless. I ordered the project to be finished on Friday, says the manager, knowing the team was already finishing it on Friday anyway.
It is a feedback loop. He tolerates no insubordination, but he commands nothing that requires actual effort or change. The incentive isn't to do anything. It is purely the maintenance of the title of king.
He is trapped in the costume of leadership without any of the function of it. He reigns over a void.
Then the prince hops to the next planet and meets the conceited man.
The incentive of status.
This guy has a hat, but he only uses it to salute when people clap for him.
The hat trick. It is a mechanism for harvesting attention. It is really the earliest form of, like, farming, if you think about social media.
Right. And he asks the prince to clap. The prince claps. The man raises his hat. They do this for 5 minutes, and the prince gets bored. He asks, what should one do to make the hat come down?
And the man does not hear him. This
Yeah.
is a crucial detail. Saint-Exupéry writes, conceited people never hear anything but praise. The system has filtered out all data that does not reinforce the ego.
It is a corrupted input channel. If it isn't validation, it just does not exist to him.
He demands the prince admit that he is the handsomest, best-dressed, richest, and most intelligent man on the planet.
But he's the only person on the planet.
That is the absurdity of it. It highlights the absurdity of competitive ranking in a closed system. He's winning a race with no other participants.
But the incentive of status is so strong that he needs the validation of the prince, an alien visitor, to confirm a reality that is statistically meaningless.
Admire me just the same, he begs. He needs the metric of admiration, even if the data point is entirely forced. It is the quantification of the self.
Okay, but the next one is the one that I think defines our modern world more than any other. The businessman.
The inhabitant of the fourth planet. The man with the cigarette.
He is so busy he does not even raise his head when the prince arrives. He's just counting. 3 and 2 make 5, 5 and 7 make 12. He counts all the way to 501 million.
500 million what?
The prince asks him, and the businessman is annoyed. He says, those little golden objects that set lazy men to idle dreaming.
Stars. He is counting stars.
And the prince asks, what do you do with them? And the businessman says, I own them.
This is the incentive of accumulation, the ownership fallacy.
But what does it mean to own a star? You cannot touch it, you cannot consume it, you cannot put it in your pocket.
The businessman explains the mechanism perfectly. He says, I write the number of my stars on a little paper, and then I put this paper in a drawer and lock it with a key.
That is it.
That is it. That is the banking model. The incentive structure here is pure abstraction. Value is not in the use of the stars. It is not in looking at them, navigating by them, wondering about them, writing poetry about them.
The value is in the ledger entry.
Exactly. It is the psychological satisfaction of having the number in the drawer. It is capital accumulation divorced completely from utility.
And the prince destroys him with one sentence. The prince says, I own a flower, which I water every day. I own 3 volcanoes, which I clean out every week. It is of some use to my volcanoes, and it is of some use to my flower that I own them. But you are of no use to the stars.
You are of no use to the stars. That hits so hard.
It really does.
That is the ultimate systems critique. The adult system rewards extraction. It rewards taking the number, claiming the asset, but not contribution.
The prince defines ownership as responsibility and utility. I serve the thing I own.
While the businessman defines ownership as exclusion and accounting. I prevent others from having it, and I count it.
And the businessman opens his mouth but finds nothing to say. He has absolutely no rebuttal.
Because his system just crashed. He cannot compute utility to the star. It is an error code in his operating system.
So we have the design, we have the incentives. Now let us look at the outcomes. Where does this actually lead? Phase 3, the prince moves on and things start to get darker.
We start to see severe structural failures. Let us look at the tippler.
The drunkard.
This creates a really sad, tight loop. The prince asks, why are you drinking? He says, to forget. To forget what? To forget that I am ashamed. Ashamed of what? Ashamed of drinking.
It is a closed loop system, a feedback loop of despair. The solution, which is drinking, is the cause of the problem, which is shame, which then requires more of the solution.
In a system without external input, without relational value or help, the participant is just trapped. The system is self-reinforcing, even as it actively destroys the participant.
And then we get to the lamplighter, the 5th planet. This one is the smallest. There's just a street lamp and a lamplighter.
The prince actually respects this guy. He says, He is the only one who does not seem to me ridiculous.
Because he's doing something useful. Because he occupies himself with something other than himself. The king, the conceited man, the businessman, they are all entirely self-obsessed. The lamplighter serves the lamp. He actually has a vocation.
It's the situation he is in is a nightmare.
It really is. It is pure bureaucratic burnout. The planet's rotation has sped up. A day is now 1 minute long. But the orders, the institutional rule says he must light the lamp at sunset and extinguish it at sunrise.
So he is clicking it on and off once every minute. He gets no rest at all. He just says, orders are orders.
This is the lack of agility in the system. The environment changed. The rotation speed increased, but the institutional rule did not change to match it.
The algorithm is legacy code.
He is trapped by the algorithm.
Precisely. He is the worker crushed by a policy that refuses to adapt to reality. He is performing a duty that has become meaningless torture because the context has shifted, but the system cannot see the shift. It only sees the order.
He is faithful, but he is being ground into dust by the rigidity of the system.
And then the geographer, the guy with the huge book.
The dissociation of knowledge. This represents the academic or the administrator who is totally cut off from the operations on the ground.
He is sitting at a desk writing in a massive registry, but he does not know if there are oceans or mountains on his own planet.
He says, I am not an explorer. I am a geographer. He relies entirely on explorers' data inputs to bring him information. He is basically a database administrator.
And he audits them. He checks their moral character. He says if an explorer is a drunkard, he sees double and might report 2 mountains instead of 1.
Which is funny, but it shows how he filters data. He is obsessed with the purity of the data stream, not the reality of the mountain. But the real structural failure is when the prince mentions his flower.
Right. The prince says, I have a flower, and the geographer says, we do not record flowers.
Why is that? The flower is the most beautiful thing on my planet.
We do not record them, said the geographer, because they are ephemeral.
Ephemeral. In danger of speedy disappearance. The geographer explains that books must be concerned with eternal things, mountains, oceans, things that do not change.
This is the structural blind spot of the entire system. The system prioritizes the container, which is the mountain, and it completely deletes the content, which is the living flower.
It creates a map of the world that excludes everything that actually matters to the living.
Life is ephemeral. Love is ephemeral. A laugh is ephemeral. By rejecting the ephemeral, the geographer is rejecting life itself in favor of permanent data. He wants a map that never expires, even if it is essentially a map of a graveyard.
And that scares the prince. He realizes his flower is ephemeral. She has only 4 thorns to defend herself against the world, and he left her all alone.
It is his first real moment of regret. But the geographer just advises him to visit Earth. It has a good reputation, he says.
So he goes to Earth, and here we see the mass scale of these outcomes. The switchman.
The logistics of purposelessness. The prince meets the switchman who sorts travelers into bundles of 1,000.
And he sends the trains rushing to the right or to the left. The trains are thundering by, shaking the cabin.
The prince asks, what are they looking for? And the switchman says, not even the locomotive engineer knows that.
He says, they are not satisfied where they are.
And the prince asks, are they chasing the first travelers? And the switchman says, they are chasing nothing at all. They are sleeping in there, or yawning. Only the children are flattening their noses against the window panes.
Only the children know what they're looking for.
The adult outcome is movement without meaning. It is a velocity trap. We rush at high speeds, sort it into bundles, but we have no destination. We are just in transit.
We are optimizing for speed, but the destination has been completely lost.
And finally, we have the merchant, the optimization pathology. This guy sells pills that quench thirst.
You swallow 1 a week, and you do not need to drink water.
Why? Because they save a tremendous amount of time, the merchant says. 53 minutes a week.
The metric is clear. Efficiency.
And the prince asks, what do I do with those 53 minutes?
Anything you like.
And the prince thinks, if I had 53 minutes to spend as I liked, I should walk at my leisure toward a spring of fresh water.
That is the kill shot right there. The system optimizes the result, the hydration, but it eliminates the ritual, the walk, the desire, the water itself.
It views the process of living as a friction to be removed. If we can remove the walk to the well, we are more efficient. But the prince argues that the walk is the life.
So we have this terrifying picture painted for us. Adults are blind to the inside of things. They're obsessed with numbers. They are trapped in feedback loops of status and accumulation. They are burning out on outdated orders, mapping a dead world, and rushing nowhere to save time they do not even know how to use.
Correct. That is the architecture of the crisis in perception.
So why do we do it? Phase 4, persistence.
Yeah.
Why does this quantifiable system endure? Why do we not just quit?
Because it offers administrative clarity. It is, in a strange way, safer.
Safer?
Recall the mushroom defense.
Oh, right. The prince gets angry at the pilot earlier in the book. The pilot is trying to fix his engine, which is a matter of life and death, total utility, and the prince is asking about the sheep and the flower's thorns.
And the pilot snaps, I am busy with matters of consequence.
Using the exact same phrase as the businessman, matters of consequence, the pilot has slipped right back into the adult role.
And the prince explodes. He says, I know a planet where there is a certain red-faced gentleman. He has never smelled a flower. He has never looked at a star. He has never loved anyone. He has never done anything in his life but add up figures. And all day, he says over and over, I am busy with matters of consequence. And that makes him swell up with pride. But he is not a man. He is a mushroom.
A mushroom. It is the ultimate insult. A fungus. Something that just exists and consumes and stays in the dark.
But why does the system persist? Because the red-faced gentleman genuinely believes his sums are important. The system validates his lack of engagement with the real world by calling it serious business.
If you are adding up figures, you do not have to deal with the messy, painful reality of loving a flower that might be eaten by a sheep.
It is a defense mechanism. It is an inoculation against vulnerability. Figures provide safety. It is easier to say, I own 500 million stars, than to say, I appreciate the silence of the night.
Because one is a fact you can lock in a drawer. The other is a feeling that might overwhelm you.
So we hide in the numbers.
We hide in the numbers and we hide in the productivity.
And the system persists because it keeps us busy. The businessman, the lamplighter, the switchman, they are all too busy to question the value of their labor. The velocity itself prevents the introspection necessary to stop the train.
So is there a way out?
Phase
5, interconnection. The counter system.
Saint-Exupéry does not just diagnose the illness here, he offers the cure. But it requires a complete shift in vision. It requires taming.
Hand of the fox.
The fox is probably the most important philosopher in the book. The prince meets him and wants to play. The fox says, I cannot play with you. I am not tamed.
And the prince asks, what does that mean, tame?
The fox defines it very clearly. It means to establish ties.
He explains, to me, you are still nothing more than a little boy who is just like 100,000 other little boys, and I have no need of you. And you, on your part, have no need of me. To you, I am nothing more than a fox like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, then we shall need each other. To me, you will be unique in all the world. To you, I shall be unique in all the world.
This is the massive shift from institutional perception to relational perception. Institutional perception sees one unit of boy and one unit of fox. They are commodities, they are interchangeable. Relational perception sees the unique individual.
And the fox explains how this changes the physical world. This is the part that always gets me, the wheat fields.
Yes. The fox does not eat bread. Wheat is useless to him. The fields mean nothing. They are empty. They are just visual noise to his operating system.
But the prince has gold hair.
So the fox says, the grain, which is also golden, will bring me back the thought of you, and I shall love to listen to the wind in the wheat.
The connection charges the physical world with meaning. The object, the wheat, gains value through the relationship, not its market price.
This is the feedback loop of love. Before taming, the world is just indifferent data. After taming, the world is a network of reminders and symbols. The world becomes enchanted again, not through magic, but through connection.
But taming isn't just liking someone. It requires work. It requires rites.
Ritual versus routine. We talked about the lamplighter's routine, which was imposed, meaningless repetition. The fox teaches the right.
He tells the prince to come back at the same time every day. If you come at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then at 3 o'clock, I shall begin to be happy.
At 4 o'clock, I shall already be worrying and jumping about. I shall show you how happy I am. But if you come at just any time, I shall never know at what hour my heart is to be ready to greet you.
One must observe the proper rites.
Structure is necessary. That is the nuance here. The fox is not an anarchist. He wants structure. But the structure must be designed to enhance anticipation and connection, not just productivity. He schedules the time so that the time becomes a vessel for emotion.
And then comes the heavy responsibility of that connection. The prince tames the fox. They become friends, but then the prince has to leave, and the fox cries.
The prince says, "It has done you no good at all, because the fox is hurting so much."
And the fox says, "It has done me good because of the color of the wheat fields."
The pain of loss is the price of the meaning. The wheat is no longer empty. A sad world is better than an empty world.
And the fox sends the prince to look at the roses again. The prince stumbled upon a garden of 5,000 roses earlier and was completely devastated because he thought his rose was unique. He thought he was rich, but he realized he was just a guy with a common rose.
But he goes back to the 5,000 roses. And now, armed with the fox's teachings, he sees the truth. He tells them, "You are beautiful, but you are empty. One could not die for you."
To be sure, an ordinary passerby would think that my rose looked just like you, the rose that belongs to me. But in herself alone, she is more important than all the hundreds of you other roses.
Why?
Because it is she that I have watered. Because it is she that I have put under the glass globe. Because she is my rose.
Value is generated by the time wasted on the rose. It is the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important.
Labor plus care equals value, not the market price, not the rarity, the investment of self.
And the fox gives him the final secret, the most famous line in the book. "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye."
What is essential is invisible to the eye.
This is the direct rebuttal to the adult perception system. The essential things, love, loyalty, the uniqueness of a laugh, the memory of wheat cannot be seen, they cannot be counted, they cannot be locked in a drawer.
And the adult system relies entirely on the eye. It relies on observable metrics. Therefore, the adult system is literally blind to the essential.
Which brings us to the deep dive conclusion, the crisis in perception.
We see this come together perfectly in the scene with the well. The pilot and the prince are in the desert, dying of thirst. They finally find a well.
And the pilot hoists the bucket. It is heavy. The pulley creaks. He pulls it up, trembling, and he gives the prince a drink.
The text says, "This water was indeed a different thing from ordinary nourishment. Its sweetness was born of the walk under the stars, the song of the pulley, the effort of my arms. It was good for the heart, like a present."
It wasn't just H2O.
No. The merchant's pill would have provided the H2O, but it would not have provided the nourishment.
So, if we step back and look at all of this analytically, we have to ask the ultimate question. What is the crisis in perception here?
The crisis is that the adult world measures the shell and completely misses the essence. We measure the house cost, the star count, the train speed. We optimize for the result, the hydration, the arrival.
But we miss the home, the beauty, the journey.
We miss the invisible structural layer entirely.
Yes, institutional logic acts as if only the countable exists. But systems-level analysis reveals that the most critical components of a functioning world, loyalty, love, uniqueness, joy, are uncountable. Therefore, the system treats them as non-existent.
And because it treats them as non-existent, it ends up destroying them.
Exactly. Adult logic appears rational. Saving 53 minutes is quote-unquote efficient. But it is actually deeply irrational because it destroys the quality of life it aims to manage. If you save 53 minutes but lose the desire to walk to the spring, you have impoverished yourself, not enriched yourself.
The prince says, "The men where you live raise 5,000 roses in the same garden, and they do not find in it what they are looking for."
And yet what they are looking for could be found in one single rose or in a little water.
But the eyes are blind. One must look with the heart.
That is the challenge of this entire deep dive. We have to learn to see the B side of the data. We have to look at the stars not as assets to be banked, but as 500 million little bells, as the pilot says at the very end.
And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought here. The ending of the book is so haunting. The prince goes back. He lets the snake bite him to shed his heavy body so he can return to his rose. And the pilot is left alone.
And he leaves us with a final systemic uncertainty. He draws the landscape. He asks us to ask ourselves, has the sheep eaten the flower, yes or no?
And you will see how everything changes.
If the sheep has eaten the flower, the stars are tears. If the sheep has not, the stars are bells. The entire alignment of the universe depends on the survival of one invisible rose on a distant asteroid.
And no grown-up will ever understand that this is a matter of so much consequence.
No, because it does not change the GDP. but it changes absolutely everything.
Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind crisis in perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.